students from finishing the dissertation process. If you've been wondering that question about how you're going to get through this process without hitting these barriers, I want you to watch this video because I'm going to talk about the three barriers that are going to prevent you from finishing your dissertation this year. I want to say thank you all so much for tuning in. And this episode comes from just having helped so many doctoral students through this process. And when I kind of looked at what were the barriers that impacted the students from finishing, or what were some of the barriers they had to overcome in their process, I narrowed it down to three barriers, and I'm going to give you a fourth one that's a bonus that also is wrapped up in here that I want you all to have a good understanding of so that you don't experience this. And again, I'm going to say welcome for all of those of you tuning in. My name is Dr. Ramon Goings, and I am host of From ABD to PhD show and founder of Done Dissertation. And the purpose of this show is to help demystify the dissertation process that you can finish in record time. This episode of From ABD to PhD is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is our flagship program, and it's a 4-month experience to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend either your dissertation proposal or your final dissertation in the next 4 months. So if you're someone who is interested in learning more about getting through the dissertation process, what I want you to do is visit www.velocitydissertation.com. And again, it's www.velocitydissertation.com. And those who are tuning in live, what I want you all to do real quick for me, share this on your timeline, share this in your stories, wherever you're watching this from. I got folks from LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you all are. Please share this because I want to talk about some of the barriers today that are impacting doctoral students from getting through the process. I want to make sure that you are kicking off your academic semester with the right knowledge and skill set so that you can get through this process with as much ease as possible, because the process is hard, y'all. So I can't lie to you and say it's going to be easy. It's not. But I want to give you all the toolkit that you can use so when issues come up, when barriers come up, you know exactly how to navigate them. And as always, we want to build community and know where people are coming from. So if you just let me know in the chat where you're coming from, so I can just give an idea of the reach of these episodes and know where people are tuning in from. And again, thank you all so much for tuning in today. And again, we want to talk about the three barriers that will prevent you from finishing your dissertation. And I've worked with so many students, and it's just very interesting, these particular three that it comes down to. And the bonus fourth one I want to give you because it impacts a lot of students as well. And shout out to my guy, Ron Miller, checking in from Austin, Texas. Good to see you, Ron, as always. Ron's one of our clients. He finished up on our program in 2022 and successfully defended his dissertation proposal in the last couple of weeks. So congrats to you, Ron, on that again. And before we get into this, also shout out to one of our clients, Jessie Desir, who successfully defended her dissertation proposal. Well, we just found out about it, but she did it about a month ago. But we're so excited to hear about Jessie and her dissertation defense. And so we first want to celebrate our clients. But then what I want to do is get into the information for today, because I know a lot of you are trying to figure out what are the barriers that you're going to experience and how can you prevent them. And so it comes down to three overarching barriers that I continuously see in my practice of helping support doctoral students across the globe. And the first barrier that will prevent you from finishing your dissertation is that you haven't taken the time to learn literature. And again, I'll repeat that one. The first barrier that I see that it will impact you from finishing your dissertation is not taking the time to learn the literature. Because here's what I know. I can give you all the strategy. I literally can lay out step by step what to do when, how to develop your framework, how to actually doing research. But if you don't know the literature in your area, it won't help. Because what will be hard for you to do is to understand, like, what body of work are you getting to? How are you contributing to it? Because imagine there's a conversation that's been going on your topic for a long time before you entered it as a doc student. And if you don't know what's happened previously, a lot of times you might repeat the same stuff that's already been done, and you might not figure out a way to put a unique twist on it. And again, in research, you don't have to do anything completely new. It's a matter of taking the topic that's already been studied and putting a different slant on it and, making it unique to you. But a lot of us, get so consumed with trying to do that part, but don't really take the time to read the literature. And what I will say is that I'm no different than you are. If this is your experience and you feel like you just don't know enough from the literature. When I was a doc student, I came into a doctoral program in urban educational leadership at Morgan State University. Prior to that, I was in a master's program in human services with a focus in clinical counseling. So the literature that I was reading in my master's program was all tailored to being a therapist. So it's all about, counseling techniques and gestalt therapy and all these other things. And when I got into the education leadership program, it was a whole new world. And literally what I had to do was really take the time to reconnect with the literature, because I just did not understand what was going on in terms of how these scholars think. And I figured out, because when I got my first paper back from one of my professors, Dr. Shockley, shout out to Dr. Shockley, the first thing he said is like, hey, yeah, you're gonna need a writing coach and editor to improve this. Like he thought that, my writing was bad. But when I've looked back on that process, what was bad writing was actually a sign of actually bad reading, because I hadn't really read. I did enough to read the couple class papers I needed to for class, but I couldn't read everything. I didn't recognize that that was what it took in order to get to that next level. And for a lot of us, that's what's holding us back. And one of the biggest barriers I see from folks who are writing a dissertation is the fact that you don't know the literature. And here's how the faculty really know. And so listen up, because I'm going to give you the cheat code as to how faculty, you might be wondering, how does your faculty figure out that you don't know the literature? And this is how we do it. You'll turn in a paper. Maybe it's something you submitted. Maybe it's your chapter 1, for instance. Introduction to your dissertation. What we do is that we'll read through your document, and honestly, all it takes me about, our eyes are pretty trained at this point. All I need to do is read about a paragraph or two, and I know if you know it or not. It just comes off in your writing. But what ends up happening is that a lot of times within these chapters, you'll be citing the same 2 or 3 articles over and over and over again. So that kind of gets the spidey senses of a faculty member, like, do they really know this area that well? And then what we will do, because we know how to navigate this process, I'll do a simple Google Scholar search and I'll look into your area. And then what I'll notice is that, oh my God, there's so much written about this topic. Why haven't they incorporated this all in? And not even that, why haven't they added the key researchers who are like the leaders in this area, who are highly cited, whose work is really foundational to this knowledge base? Why haven't they cited them? And a lot of times when I go back to the student, it's oftentimes because of, like, hey, they haven't read enough. They maybe found those couple of articles and say, yep, I'm good enough. And I'm able to, I'm going to put this together. And then for some of you all, you probably have become very frustrated with writing because you feel like you don't have any literature. And just a strategy and tip here is that a lot of what you all are doing is trying to read so narrowly on your topic. So if you're looking at elementary school teachers in rural communities in, I don't know, in the deep South, you'll only look for papers about, elementary school teachers in rural communities in the urban South. You won't take a step up and a layer up and might just say, what are the experiences of rural teachers? Or what are the experience of teachers in the deep South? Or what are the experience of elementary teachers? And kind of piece it all together, give you an understanding of the literature. A lot of us just read so specific that we don't give ourselves enough time to kind of catch the breadth of the conversation as well. It's important to be very niche down, but you got to take a step out from that too to understand the literature. But if you haven't even thought through that process, like, hey, I got to read inward in my topic and outward, this is something that you really got to consider and do immediately, because this will be a barrier that will prevent you from finishing the process. And again, reading is the foundation of everything else that goes on with your dissertation. So when you're thinking about how are you going to, put your chapter 2 together, a lot of people think about the literature just for chapter 2, but like, no, the literature, as you all recognize, spans all the chapters. Chapter 1, you're referring to the literature. Chapter 2, in your literature review, talk about the literature. Even in your methodology chapter, you got to cite the literature. So not only do you need to be well read on your topic, you have to actually need to be well read on your methods too, because it's not out of the ordinary for a faculty member to go during your dissertation proposal defense or final defense and ask you a methods question. And if you can be able to talk about the work of methodologists and your maybe your method that you used, or even just your research design. So if you're doing quantitative study, maybe just talking about the design, it gives you so much more of a leg up on someone else who just hasn't taken the time to do so. But again, this is really important. Again, it's the foundation. And this is just like, I'll give an analogy for some of my folks who might be, sports fans or things like that. So as you all see behind me, let's see which this direction, you'll see that basketball kind of in the far back there. And so that basketball, I was a college athlete and a college basketball player, and it was really good in high school, right? But when I started playing basketball as a kid, all I could do was go right. And essentially, I can go right really well. But as soon as the defender pushed me left, because I didn't have that foundational skill set to use my left hand to dribble left and to finish layups and shoot with my left hand, I was at a disadvantage. And so literally that foundational piece of being able to use both of my hands gave me such an advantage over my opponent, because now when I learned how to use my left hand, when they had to defend me, they didn't know which way to push me because I had the skill set to go both ways. And this is what we're talking about with the reading. It's such a foundational piece. So without that, the writing doesn't come, the synthesizing doesn't come, because you don't have anything to synthesize. Like, how can you synthesize 2 to 3 articles? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You don't even understand the body of work. And so that is what's impacting a lot of folks. So that's one of the barriers I want you to think about. And for my for my non-sports folks, I give you a different way of thinking about this from music, right? So one of the foundational skills in order to play music, a lot of kids, when you're first starting out, you might start with one hand, right? Usually your dominant hand, left or right, whichever one. Your dominant hand usually start playing the melody. And then it gets to a point when you want to play more intricate music, you have to then develop the skill set of your left hand playing the piano. And then once you be able to do those, you have so much more depth that you can go with your music, because now you can play with both hands, you can do chords, you can really add on to the melody and really make rich music. And the same thing happens with the reading process. The reading is the foundation. With the reading comes the writing and the synthesizing. All those things come together, but it first starts with reading. So the first barrier that I want you to overcome and avoid is not knowing the literature in your area. And I see it impacting a lot of folks. And if you have questions about anything I mentioned, please drop it in the chat. And shout out to the couple of folks who are joining in from the Velocity Group Coaching Program. So they're folks who are already participating in our coaching program, get support to get through the dissertation process quickly. And so shout out to you all. And this episode is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It's a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend either your dissertation proposal or final dissertation over the next 4 months. So feel free to drop in a question, comment, or thought that you might have. And I see somebody says, hello, Dr. Goins. I don't know who it is, just because it just says Facebook user. So just let me know I'm commenting so I can give you a shout out as well. So thank you all again for the comments. And so first things first, we talked about the idea that you don't know the literature, and that comes up, and that's a big piece. And that's why I keep stressing that throughout these videos, because I can give you all the strategy, but I can't teach you the literature. So once we got that down, here's the second barrier that will prevent you from finishing your dissertation. And what this comes down to is that you have become so consumed with the politics of the dissertation process that you lose sight of the things you can control. This is a barrier because you become consumed with the politics of dissertation. And then because of that, the end result is that you don't focus on the things you can control. So what that looks like is you are waiting for other people to do things for you. And I want you all to start thinking about right now that the dissertation process will not go according to plan. It just will not. I have too much evidence to suggest that it will not. I'll take myself as an example, because I'm always one that use myself as a case study, because I never want to come up here and say like I had a perfect process. It was definitely not perfect, but I learned a lot along the way. And so here's what happened to me. I wrote my dissertation in 7 months, knocked it out. I actually had a great solid study. Then I get back to we had to submit our document to our final, dissertation chair. It was approved, committee approved it, and then had to go to the department chair. And the department chair at the time read my dissertation thoroughly, and then gave me, and I had the document here, and I had to pull it out of the archives. So this is my writing as I was thinking through, this feedback that I got. And she said at the end of this, she was just saying that, basically there's 4 big things that I need you to fix. And one was about my theoretical and conceptual framework. And she thought that were some things I could reword my research questions, and that my chapter 5, that I could tailor it to talk more about the themes and to really get at my research questions. And then when I got all this feedback, at the end on the final portion, I'm going to show it to my phone so folks can see, and then I'll show it to the camera as well. It says, not ready for defense. And for me, that could have been, the end of things, right? I just could have been like, you know what, that's it. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm done with this process. But I had to understand that I couldn't get so consumed with the politics of the process that I lost track of what I was trying to do, which was earn my doctorate. And shout out to Dr. KBW on Instagram. And real quick, can you let me know if you hear my audio? I have a new mic on Instagram, so just let me know if you can hear my audio. I just want to make sure this setup is working correctly. So just let me know if you can hear me. And again, a lot of us get so consumed with these politics, and what ends up happening is that you get so concerned about how this thing will go that you just stop working. And I see it over and over and over again. So here's what I want you to do. I want you not to get discouraged when things don't go according to plan. And I want to give an example. I had a client a few months back in 2022 at some point, or 2021, that worked with us and had finished up the dissertation, had submitted their entire dissertation to the committee. And then the committee turned back around and said, you know what? This is a great work, but we actually want you to consider adding a new conceptual framework and possibly going back to collect more data. Imagine that. Imagine that you were writing your dissertation, had finished it, and then all of a sudden had to go back and collect data. For a lot of us, that would have been the it for us. We would have got so consumed with the politics and the process that we would have been discouraged. We wouldn't have picked up the document. we would have said, forget it. These people don't want me to finish. Like those things will discourage us. But what this client and this student did was like, look, nothing's going to take away from me getting this doctorate at this point. So whatever I got to do to get to where I need to go is what I'm willing to do. And this is the reason why this client earned a doctorate. And really, it was about their own persistence and work that really got them to the next level. Dr. Brown, it's good to see you. Dr. Brown, if you're on Instagram, can you let me know if you can hear me? I just want to make sure this mic is working for Instagram through my phone. And again, I've seen this happen over and over and over again. And some people just let it take them out. And I don't want that for you. I want you all to finish. I want you all to get through this process. And I don't want the process to consume you in the process of it so much so that you lose track. Because sometimes what we'll end up doing is start trying to nitpick our chairs and committees and like saying, well, why don't they get me? They said they're going to give me the feedback in, 3 weeks, and it's been 5 weeks. Why haven't they done it? And then you start, I've had some clients who are just, started to take it up a notch and just say, you know what? Because they're not giving me feedback when I want it, when I demand it, I'm going to send them an email demanding they give me feedback, which is a bad move. And then what ends up happening after that is not only do they try to do things like that, but they also then may say, you know what, I want to take this a step up and I'm going to go to the dean or I'm going to try to go to the provost. And now you're going to try to circumvent the process. It's different when, your chair or committee has been egregiously non-responsive. I get it. Those are the times that you need to escalate the process. But there are times when you just got to play this thing cool and just go through it. Because what I always tell our clients, and it's something that you all can take from this, is that don't get so worried about when they're going to give you feedback, because you have things that you can always be doing to stay a step or two ahead of everybody. Once you figure out that cadence and taking a step and staying a step ahead of everybody, it becomes so much more faster. But what a lot of folks will do is just get in their feelings, get nasty, get rude. And look, the reality is there are power dynamics at play. Whether you agree with it or not is certainly up for debate. I understand, but there are power dynamics. You don't want to mess this up for things that aren't necessary. There are going to be times, and I've had clients where there are times that they need to change their chair or they need to take a step up because just the university has been, non-responsive to their needs. That's very different. But if you're just in your feelings because you didn't get feedback in the week that you expected it, move on to the next thing. Honestly, you shouldn't be worried about that. Like, I'm going to keep focusing. And by the time once you get into this mindset that I'm going to keep working regardless of the time frame when they give me feedback and not let anything stop you, that's when the process starts to speed up. It's almost like a mindset shift and a trick to getting through this thing a lot quicker. But again, y'all, don't let that power dynamic get in your way of finishing. And for a lot of y'all, you'll get so consumed with it and you'll let it take you out. And I don't want that for you. I want you all to finish. I want you all to succeed. And I don't want you all getting so consumed with how things are coming along with the process and the politics of it all that you lose sight of your end goal. And it will happen very quick, and it'll happen just you won't even notice it. And then next thing you know, you'll start complaining about everything. Like, those chairs, they ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not doing their job. Like, I email them and they take 2 days to get back with me, not recognizing they have lives. They have stuff going on. Like, faculty of people. I'm a person, I have doc students, my own, stuff happens, y'all. And you guys just have to work with your chair. But this is when I talked about last week, having an open line of communication is so important, because now you have a place where you can talk and open with your chair and committee members because you've taken the time to establish a working relationship. So with that, all I have to say, the second barrier to finishing your dissertation that will prevent you from finishing your dissertation is that you get so consumed with the politics of the process that you lose sight of the end goal. And if this is resonating with you, please let me know. If you have any questions, please drop it in the comments. I'll be sure to address any questions that you have once I finish up here today. And again, this episode from PhD, from ABD to PhD, is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you, the doctoral student, write and do your dissertation proposal or final dissertation in the next 4 months. So if you're someone that needs help and wants support, we do have openings in our program currently. So I welcome you to visit www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our program and to apply. So far, for those who are just tuning in, we talked about 2 of the 3 barriers that will prevent you from finishing your dissertation. Barrier number 1 is that you haven't taken the time to learn the literature. And barrier number 2 is that you become so consumed with the politics of the dissertation process that you lose sight of the end goal, which is finishing your dissertation and all the things that you can control. And again, if this is resonating with you, please let me know in the comments, because I just want to understand questions that you all might have, thoughts, things that you all are kind of contemplating with this. Because this will happen. These things will pop up and you'll be surprised about how it can be very distracting to your dissertation journey. And then the third barrier that will prevent you from finishing your dissertation is that you go into the dissertation process expecting it to be laid out and set up like your coursework. And I hear this over and over again. A lot of students say, you know what? I was doing great. I was doing my coursework. I was showing up to class. I was doing everything. I was getting things done. I was checking off the boxes. I was turning in my work on time. I was getting A's. And then you get to the dissertation and you're like, wait a minute. Yo, faculty are coming for me on this feedback. Like, why are they so critical? And what happened? What's different? And for a lot of us, it's because we've approached this process, in particular the dissertation phase, with the same mindset that we had with our coursework. And I would tell you right now, just so you have this, you know it. I told you, I told you, if you haven't recognized, you probably already recognize this, that the dissertation is not like coursework. It is vastly different. Don't go into it with that same mentality and mindset, because it will only frustrate you. So I just want you all to know, so you have this information right now, so that you don't feel bad about it. The dissertation process is very different than coursework. So don't go into it with that mindset, because what ends up happening for a lot of students, and I see this with universities too, who have these rubrics for you all. A lot of you all will start writing your dissertations just with the goal of checking off the box of the rubric, not recognizing that the rubric's going to be, you're going to be evaluated based on the rubric, but the content's got to be there. So, imagine one part of the rubric said, I don't know, the researcher, used 4 themes, right? You could say, hey, I have 4 themes in my literature review. Check. I'm going to get the 2 points or whatever, however they score it. But what you all don't know is that when faculty are reviewing it, we're not just reviewing it based on that rubric. We're also seeing, like, does this person, are their writing showing that they have a command of the literature, that they are building an authority on a topic? Those things are very important to this process. And if you don't have that, it will show up in the writing. But it's all because sometimes we approach the dissertation like we did coursework, and we just have to settle off a checkbox. And that's not where we need to be with this process. We actually need to think about this very differently. Remember, as you're writing a dissertation, you are generating new knowledge. Literally, the insight and perspective that you learned from your study did not exist before you did it. So how you can't go into this process thinking it's going to be set up like coursework. It just is not. And I don't want you all to get frustrated when things don't go according to you, get things kicked back to you, because there is a new level of expectation. And this is why I talked about in a previous episode around why expectations are so important to talk about early, so you know what's being expected and required of you. Because once you know the expectation, you can meet the expectation, just like you did with coursework. But really, faculty wants you to take it a step higher and really start thinking more and more about your writing and really getting at this topic with informed perspective. If you don't have that yet, you will just continue to be frustrated as you go through this process. And so again, I got to give it to you the real deal, because I want you all to know, and I see a lot of students who often come to either work with us or come to our workshops or events that we do, and they have this mindset that, like, hey, it should be just like coursework, and it is not. And what I want you all to start doing and considering is that, hey, you all are going to be knowledge producers. So approach it like that. That's why knowing the literature is so important. That's why not being so consumed with the dissertation process becomes so important, because you're going to focus on the things you can control and not lose sight of the end goal. And then lastly, you will recognize that the dissertation process is not like coursework. It's a very different thing. Once you put all these into practice, and just know that they may pop up and it'll be a barrier for you if you haven't already overcome it, just know these are things that will pop up over and over and over again, and you're going to have to address it. And so I see Bamadele. Shout out to Bamadele. Good to hear from you, my friend. You said, Bamadele says, you got to read and write every day, because you as a researcher, you're in the driver's seat in the dissertation process. Yes, indeed, Bamadele, you are in the dissertation process. And that actually, Bamadele, is a great transition. I'm actually going to give you all a bonus barrier that I think will prevent you from finishing your dissertation, that's not necessarily related to these 3, but will pop up and will really impact you in a way that you don't think it will. And it's sad to see when it does, what I'm going to talk about, but it just happens to us all. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just part of how this process goes, because we're trying to do something that we've never done before. But the bonus barrier that I know prevents a lot of students from finishing is that this idea that you internally believe you can't finish. And so you just become your worst enemy. So again, I'm gonna repeat that you internally don't believe you can finish, so you become your worst enemy. And what ends up happening is you start to self-sabotage your research, you start to self-sabotage your process, you start to wait for everybody to tell you what to do. And that becomes from a place of complacency, and not even complacency. Sometimes it's like helplessness. And in order to get through the dissertation process, you cannot be helpless in this process. You actually have to be what Bomdeli mentioned. And what I talk about is that you actually have to be proactive and in the driver's seat. And I always get this analogy, right? If you're driving a car, if you are someone who is experiencing this particular barrier about you don't believe in yourself, and as a result about not believing you can finish, you sabotage the process. This is like you saying, "Hey, I'm gonna get in the car with with some friends, and this friends being your chair and committee. I'm gonna get in the car with my friends and committee, and I'm gonna drive, but I'm gonna drive blindfolded because I just think I kind of know my destination. I'll get there eventually, I think, and we'll see what happens." And a lot of times y'all say this with your decision, like I'll see, we'll just see what happens, and you're just driving blind and you have no control over the process. And luckily, you might have someone in the passenger seat, like your chair, that might say, "You know what? Get out of the driver's seat because you're driving blindfolded. You're not trying to kill us all. I'm going to take over and help you get to the finish line." And then what ends up happening is that your dissertation doesn't become yours; it becomes your chair because your chair is driving the quote dissertation car. And as you see, for those of all who take control of the process, this is how it looks. You go into the car in the driver's seat, and you might tell your chair, who's the passenger with you, "Hey, I want to get to X destination. How do we get there?" And they say, "All right, great. Back out, and I'm gonna give you the direction. I'm gonna give you the GPS. All you got to do is drive. Make sure you brake at the right time. Obey all the traffic signs, all the laws, and we'll get to our destination safely." And when you all do that, what you end up doing is you start to know the literature. You don't get consumed when you hit that barrier or that red light in the process where just committee member doesn't like what you wrote, or maybe you planned it to defend on a particular date and things just didn't go according to plan. They didn't like the documents, so they push your defense back. All these things happen, but just know that eventually that roadblock and that light will turn green. You'll be able to go and move forward along your process as long as you stay with the mindset that, "Hey, I'm going to get to my goal no matter what." And that's a mindset shift that we have to have, and that I'm not going to be helpless in this process. I'm actually going to use my guide, my chair, to help me navigate the road to getting my doctorate. And this is something that's really important, and we don't think about it till it's too late. And then I hate to see when doctoral students come to see us, and then they've been in the process for an extra year, extra 2 semesters, when they could have been done if they had had the skill set in the support and the wherewithal to know that these barriers are popping up and how to get around them. So that's why I'm doing this video today and giving you this insight, because I want you all to know that you can get through this process, but don't get caught up in the barriers that impact so many folks. And so again, the 3 barriers that prevent you from finishing your dissertation, and the bonus one is that you haven't taken the time to learn the literature. Barrier number 2 is that you get so consumed with the politics of the dissertation process that you lose control, or you lose sight of the things that you can control. And then 3, you expect the dissertation process to be laid out like coursework. And then the bonus is that internally you don't believe that you can finish, so you sabotage the dissertation process and become your own enemy. And y'all, I just want you all to understand that this is how things go. There's nothing wrong with that, but I want you all not to experience this. And this is why I do these videos, so that if you decide, "Hey, you know what, I continue to try to work by myself and not work with you," cool. At least I gave you the insight that you can use to do this yourself. And if you're one of those people that, hey, this video or a video you've done in the past has helped you navigate something, let us know, whether it's online in a comment, shoot us an email. We love to hear from folks who are watching these, listening to these, to let us know that they really appreciate the value that has been provided on this show. And that's all I have for you today from ABD to PhD show. Again, I'm Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation, and this episode is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Coaching Program. It is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend your dissertation proposal or final defense in the next 4 months. So if you want to learn more about our program and get the support that you need, visit www.velocitydissertation.com. And so real quick before I jump off, I'd be happy to take any questions that you all might have related to the dissertation journey. And thank you to Entrepreneur Claes for saying thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And if you're watching this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can just type in "Done Dissertation" on YouTube. You can subscribe to our channel. You can watch all of our past content. And if you're listening to this on the audio experience, please do give us 5 stars and drop a comment in to let us know something valuable that you learned from this episode. And these will be up on your podcast platforms here soon. We will have these coming out in the audio version because I know some folks just listen to audio versus being on video. Oh, shout out to Amira. Thank you so much, Amira, for joining us today. I appreciate you. And definitely tune in next week. And if you have some, another doc student that needs some support, send them this video. Send them the YouTube video so that they can have access to it, so they can get this insight. It's available. It's complimentary, these videos. So we want people to get this insight. And shout out to my guy Ron on YouTube. He says, the program is truly an eye-opener. You remove the mystery of the dissertation process. Thank you. Ron, thank you. You put in the work. So what we'll say at Done Dissertation is like, look, I'm not writing anybody's dissertation. Our coach staff is not writing anybody's dissertation, but we will give you all the tools and skill sets, strategies in order to navigate the process, that unique process that you are having. Because we all know that there are some commonalities in this process, but sometimes there are things that are just unique to your situation, and we help you navigate that. So Amira, I'm glad that you found that the info was valuable. Please do let me know if you have any thoughts, questions, comments. Again, share this with your friends. If you're someone, I'm not sure, Amira, let me know in the comments. Are you currently writing your dissertation? Where are you in the process? I'd love to hear more, and maybe a little bit about what your dissertation is, just so I have an understanding of what you do. And I'm assuming too with the Entrepreneur class, I'm assuming you do some entrepreneur activities as well, which is super dope. At Done Dissertation, we are all about folks earning their doctorate and then being able to leverage a doctorate as an entrepreneur. And we help a number of folks do so, and looking forward to helping more. Oh, congratulations, Amira. You're defending in April. So depending on how you feel about your process so far, we do offer dissertation coaching sessions for defenses only for folks who are at the end like this. So you find that you might need a dissertation prep session where we actually work with you and look at your presentation, look at your actual PowerPoint slides, and actually sit you through the Q&A process like you would be at your actual final defense. Then definitely reach out to me, and we can tell you more about that and get you set up if that's something that you might need as you're approaching defense. And I love helping people with their defense. That's like the best part of the process for me, is like when you get to showcase your work. And so if you need that support, please do reach out. Okay, you say, yes, you have a vocational program. Perfect. Great. Definitely, Amira, reach out to us. I'm glad that you will look into it. Shout out to my folks on Instagram. Hey, Carrie, what's going on? I'm not sure who else is on Instagram right now. Let me know in the comments who's on. Thank you for folks who have tuned in so far. Again, thank you to Amira, Bamadele, Ron, tuning in today. And I know there's a couple other people who have tuned in as well. I just want to say thank you all so much. Your support is really appreciated. And please do make sure you share this with somebody. Don't be selfish. Don't be greedy. If you got insight and knowledge that someone can benefit from, please share these videos with people who want to get through the process, but may not have been approaching it in the right way. And this information can help them. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump off for the evening. For those of you all who maybe saw me on Instagram earlier today, on my personal side, I had to do a radio interview. So shout out Dr. It was a Dr. K radio show on 88.9 FM. I'll talk about my research, but I've been doing a lot of talking today. So we're going to go ahead and jump off for the evening. Again, thank you all so much for tuning into this episode on the From ABD to PhD show. I'm Dr. Ramon Goins. I'll see you all next week. Take care, good people.